match. Thank you very much, Nick. I'm perched up there on the gantry. And a word of praise for groundsman Mike Phillips and his staff, who've been out on the pitch working to make sure we've got a game. Grimsby are without Paul Futcher. He failed a fitness test on a groin injury only a few minutes ago. So Peter Handyside, the young central defender who's been missing with a similar problem, returns to first team duty. Clive Mendonca balances that disappointment by returning against his hometown club. Mendonca's strike rate is tremendous, 13 goals despite missing half a dozen matches. Sunderland are without fullback Richard Ord, who starts a 3-match suspension. Martin Gray comes into his position. Otherwise, it's the team that gave Mick Buxton his first win as manager. Sean Cunnington returns to Blundell Park, where he was such a favourite before leaving for a club record fee of £650,000. Well, the weather has just got progressively worse. It really is quite incredible. The snow swirling around here. And talking to the referee before the game, he's spoken to both managers. He says both Alan Buckley and Mick Buxton are keen for the match to go ahead, but he's not certain that it will by any means finish. He's going to keep in touch with both managers throughout the game, seek their opinions, but he says if it gets farcical, he'll have to call it off. Such is the life of a referee. Stephen Lodge from Barnsley. So Grimsby are in the white shirts, as they would appear to you. They do have a thin pinstripe, unlike the old black and white stripes of the Mariners. Sunderland today are in all yellow. Who would be a professional footballer? Away we go, and aren't those players glad to get the match underway? Well, we always say that conditions play a part in football. Never has that been more true than it is today. Livingston must give chase to this, and I suppose it's the sort of day when you chase absolutely everything, because you don't know where the ball is going to stick. And it's very much a question of attitude. There's news that the match between Derby County and Nottingham Forest has been postponed, so they've been less fortunate down there. That's the word for it. A good turn by Jim Dobbin. Now McDermott, good to see him back in first team action. He's been out for much of the last 6 weeks. Just look at that. Smith emerged with the ball somehow, and Sunderland Smith breaks here. Well, I say breaks. It's impossible to break under those circumstances. These two are going to be slugging it out. Survival of the fittest. Crichton must be sure about his footwear as he clears up to the halfway line. McDermott. It's fair to say good football could be at a premium, which is a shame, because Grimsby do concentrate on excellent football. In fact, Alan Buckley claims that they play as good a stuff as anybody outside of Manchester United. One for Livingston to go for, and Mendonca inside the area too, and Livingston again, and again the ball holds up in there. Fair enough challenge, and something else the referee has to do today is to decide about all these challenges. Livingston almost got the better of Melville. And there's a firm header from Mark Lever onto the head of Bennett though. Tommy Watson, the Liverpudlian. Tommy Watson in because Gary Childs has been negotiating a move to Blackpool, and he's not been able to agree personal terms yet. Watson came on and scored last week against Barnsley. Well, I remember a cup tie here a few years ago when Arsenal came and won 4-3 in the snow. When Charlie Nicholas got a hat-trick. Livingston much involved in the early phases. almost impossible to wait a pass. And again, Mendonca gives chase and must do so. It landed in a puddle inside the penalty area. It's a phrase I've not used very often. Ferguson tried to spin it and only put it into the path of Dave Gilbert. Here's a chance now for Grimsby. And will it have the... No, it won't. I was going to say, will it have the pace to reach the net? As Jim Dobbin got in, he would have been a goal scorer if he'd just been able to direct it towards the net instead of just outside. The first chance of the game laid on by Gilbert. It owed much to conditions. It's a man's game. And there's Dobbin again in the thick of things. And again the ball falling short, and that enables Livingston to take it on for Grimsby. Gilbert calling for it. It's a day when players have to make a lot of decisions as Kevin Ball drives Sunderland out. Well, the normal pass isn't on. Goodman couldn't control the skidding ball. Hours. Laid back by Smith. Well, again it's stayed in, and again Mendonca chases. Not sure who Andy Melville was shouting at, whether it was the referee or... Now then, I think the trainer's required here because Paul Groves got something in his eye, and well, the referee is speaking to both Paul Groves and to Kevin Ball, the two captains, and he's probably asking them about conditions here and whether the game can continue. And I think Mr. Lodge is going to have discussion now with the two managers as well. He must feel it's a bit farcical. There's booing around the ground, but with, as you see, under 6 minutes on the clock, Stephen Lodge is going over to consult with his linesman as to whether they can see the markings, and Alan Buckley and Mick Buxton will be spoken to, and I think we'll have a very quick decision as to whether this game can continue. And in all fairness, you couldn't blame anybody for saying no thanks very much. It's not the best way of spending a Sunday afternoon, I suppose. You feel sorry for those hardy customers who've paid their money to come in. And it's off. The match is abandoned after less than 6 minutes. Boos around the ground. I think Mr. Lodge thought it was farcical, and the ball was sticking in water, surface water. They feel short-changed. It's been a long journey down from Sunderland, and they've seen no more than 5 minutes of action. But you really have to say that conditions are pretty horrendous, and no worse than down on that pitch. Look at those faces though, they look to be seething. Either that or they're bitterly cold, a bit of both. And Mick Buxton staying in his dugout there, and he's with Alan Buckley, the two of them having a chat. The referee, Mr. Lodge, did tell me before the game that he was going to consult the managers as the game went along. And I don't think it's a question of a delay. We want to find that out, whether the ref has said give it a few minutes, but there is so much water on the pitch, it can't be. The match must be off because the ground staff haven't come on to work at all. And there is the picture that says it all. It's not the ideal Sunday afternoon to be out and about. The scoreline was 0-0 when Mr. Lodge decided enough was enough. Well, the way things have been going for these two sides as well, they won't be too disconcerted. Grimsby haven't won since we saw that victory of theirs at Barnsley over a month ago. Although they came back from 2 down in the return game against the men from Oakwell last week to get a 2-2 draw. And Sunderland won away last week at Portsmouth for the first time this season. So they were feeling in better heart than they have been since the sacking of Terry Butcher. But you can see that Blundell Park here by the North Sea estuary is an extremely inhospitable place to be today. Well, that caption tells you the story from here, and we have to say that it's not unexpected. The referee thought it was worth starting the match. You can never always tell about ground conditions, but the surface water was too big a problem for the players, in the opinion of that referee. He consulted Mick Buxton, he consulted Alan Buckley, the 2 managers. They obviously felt it wasn't worthwhile continuing, although they're sitting it out like the brave souls they are. But the referee, I feel, has been totally justified in making that decision. So the news here is that the match is abandoned and we're going to take a short break.
Welcome back to Blundell Park. I would say a warm welcome, but that would be highly inappropriate. Snow, sleet, rain and a waterlogged pitch have forced the match between Grimsby and Sunderland to be abandoned after just a few minutes. We can hear now from the 2 managers, Mick Buxton of Sunderland and Alan Buckley of Grimsby. There was John Charles.
Yes, Alan, first of all, what did the referee say to you when he came over to the dugout?
Well, he just came over basically and said the players aren't happy with playing out there, and you know, it's practically impossible to play football. And if you're talking about getting the ball on the floor and trying to pass it like we try and do here, then I would tend to agree with him. And after a quick word with Mick, he decided to call the game off immediately.
What was your verdict before the game? He actually came to you before, didn't he? And what did he say then?
Well, I think Mick and I looked at the pitch with the referee at about 10-2, something like that, and there wasn't too much water on it. The ground staff were trying to get whatever water there was on it off, and really had the snow stopped there and then maybe we could have got a decent game of football. But obviously it's just gone from bad to worse, and it's totally impossible to play.
Mick, your verdict, is it the right decision?
Well, I mean, I think obviously all the viewers have seen it and the people here have seen it, and it was impossible to try and pass a ball. Very, very unfortunate. I mean, obviously our thoughts, my thoughts, and I'm sure Alan's thoughts, go out to the people who have turned up. The people of Grimsby, and certainly all the people who have travelled from Sunderland. It's a hell of a journey. Feel sorry for them.
But really no alternative, you feel?
Well, I don't think it had a prayer, to be quite honest, and it was only going to get worse, wasn't it? It wasn't as if it was going to get better. I think the rain and the snow were going to continue.
Are these the worst conditions you've actually seen football played in?
I would think so. I remember one wild windy night at Grimsby, where after I'd broke my leg and I was playing right back and ended up in the top corner and I was all right foot, and I thought, what the hell am I doing here, you know? But no, they're about the worst conditions. I mean, they said everybody's seen it, haven't they?
When's the replay, or this game going to be replayed? Any idea yet?
Obviously, I haven't even had a chance to think about that. I'll have a word with Mick, and the administration side will be taken care of. And when it's perfectly feasible for both clubs to play, then obviously we will do. I would just like to echo Mick's thoughts. My thoughts go to the supporters, really, that's taken the time out to come and watch a game of football, but they'll appreciate that you can't play in that anyway. And I suppose I feel a little bit more sorry for the people at Sunderland who's travelled 3 or 4 hours down here.
It is a very long way, and obviously a lot of Grimsby fans disappointed as well. You must be disappointed now, though.
I'm disappointed because, I mean, for the past 7 or 8 days, both Mick and I prepared players to play football, and we've come today to get them ready to play a game. And when it's called off after 2 or 3 minutes, then you're very, very disappointed. But I must say, with all the good intentions of the world wanting to play football, you just couldn't in conditions like that.
Alan Buckley and Mick Buxton, thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thanks to the 2 managers for joining us so shortly after the match, such as it was, finished. It was a farce, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, anybody who was here or watching could see that from minute 1. And it did get a lot worse in the hour leading up to the kick-off.
Funnily enough, the man from the Ensley League has just arrived, and he, like everybody else, has been delayed by the weather, and he's just now walked through the door with what would have been the Man of the Match award, and I'm afraid, thank you very much for coming, but that isn't going to be presented to anybody today. Obviously disappointment for, not just disappointment, but this can affect managers, affect teams, because they don't like long breaks between matches, do they?
That's right, and as Alan's just said, and Nick has echoed that, they're prepared for this game. They've all travelled, and they wanted the game on, and they wanted to try and get the 3 points to lift them out of the bottom reaches of the First Division. The problem is the supporters, especially from Sunderland, who have come out of their houses on such a bad day, have travelled a long way to get here, and they've got to go all the way back without seeing a game of football, and you do really feel for them.
You do. Was it fair enough then for the manager to say, well, let's give it a try, let's try it, and if it doesn't work, then it can be seen not to work?
Well, I think that's obviously their point. They went out 10-2, as Alan said, and it probably looked reasonably good then, but in the hour leading up to 3 o'clock, it did get measurably worse, and the water was lying, and the snow and the sleet came. And you could see leading up to the kick-off time it was going to be very difficult to get the game played.
Mick Buxton said that was the worst conditions he'd ever seen football played in. What about you?
Well, funny enough, last year on the television we had the Newcastle, my club and Sunderland derby, and that was pretty wet, but not half as wet as this today, and they've started and tried to get it. I mean, they needed snorkels out there, it was that wet today, didn't they? I mean, it was awful.
If people are just switching on, let's just try and illustrate the point. There was one sort of half chance for Grimsby Town, which we can show you now, and this will just illustrate for you perhaps how bad the conditions were, Chris, if you want to talk us through it.
I mean, you just couldn't pass the ball with any distance. You could really give it a good hump and get it forward and it would stop. And he's tripped over, the ball's gone wide, but no chance of a goal and no chance of any controlled football, really.
That's how bad things were, and that's how bad things are now. Just to reiterate again, I think John Hill made the point earlier on, but all praise to the Grimsby Town ground staff who worked so hard to try to get this match on, but really the evidence is there in front of you. What an impossible task that was. There are 1 or 2 fans, I should say, chanting around the ground saying we want our money back. We haven't got any information at this stage about what the club are going to do about that, but in general around the ground the Sunderland fans are waiting to be escorted out of the ground. They're getting extremely wet and extremely cold, and I mean, you know the journey back well to Sunderland. It's going to be a long, cold journey back from what we hear.
Yes, and apparently the roads are getting worse, and the A1, which is the road they'll travel up tonight, and the A19, bad roads at the best of times, so it's going to be an awful journey back, and you have got to feel for them and the people that have come out from Grimsby in their numbers to support the team on such an awful day.
Okay, well I think we can possibly show you some of the action that was played in rather drier conditions yesterday. We'll start, shall we, in Division 1. It's Barnsley, the only other match from our region where they were playing. They were at home yesterday at Oakwell against Peterborough. They won. And here's
not good to watch. I mean, it's not good to play in either.
Kevin Ball, Sunderland skipper. A lot of Sunderland fans are still here. Well, how do you feel for them?
I feel very sorry for them, because at the end of the day they paid their money to come down today. It's paid to get in as well, and they've only seen 6 minutes of a game. Which is like Gravy said, there's absolutely no way once we was out on the pitch could we play. I mean, the ball was sticking in people's feet, and that was a possibility of someone getting a sort of challenge that the ball might have carried on normally and it wouldn't have done, and someone could have got a. And like you said, we both spoke to the referee and felt it was the best that the game was called off when it was.
Do you think it should have taken place in the first place? Do you think it should have been called off before?
Well, I spoke to the referee and he said when he arrived at quarter 2 there was a bit of surface water and that, and he felt at that time the game could have gone ahead. So obviously he said with hindsight, yeah, okay, you could have called it off then, but that's something that nobody's got the gift of, and so we had to go out there and give it a go.
Well, Kevin, Paul, hope you warm up the rest of the afternoon. Thanks very much for joining us.